And we are live. Here we are. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Kid Writers Webcast. In this webcast, we're going to be talking about my 4 key tips for having great kid writing. And of course, on the Kid Writers Webcast, this is where we talk about a lot of different aspects about kid writing and share tips and experiences about how to make your kid writing the best that it can be. And this is for Kid Writers. The Kid Writers magazine. This magazine, me and some of my kid writer friends have started distributing it all over the country. So if you want a copy of the magazine, which has 7 stories written by kid authors, it has writing prompts, it has an interview with famed author Gordon Corman, it has all kinds of writing tips, and you'll definitely want to have it for yourself. And then you can write your own stories and get published in our magazine, which is what it was created for you to have an opportunity to publish your writing. So get the magazine, kidwriters.org, if you haven't already. And this is also a podcast, so it's being broadcast through Google Plus and YouTube, and it's also being broadcast on iTunes. So you can check it out there on iTunes as well. So here we're going to be talking about more practical tips. So in the first webcast, we talked about introduction. What is Kid Writers Magazine? What is it about? And I kind of defined kind of kid writing and what we're trying to do. And then the second webcast, we talked about why kid writing is important and what's really valuable about it. And then the third webcast, we talked about what makes great kid writing. And so you'll definitely want to check out those webcasts. They're more about kind of theory of writing, but they're very important because they talk about the whole structure you base your writing off of. So those would be definitely good to check out. You can check out past episodes, kidwriters.org/webcast. Now, here we've got the 4 things that I think are indispensable for being a great writer, or what my experiences has been along with some others. So the 4 things are read a lot, write smart, and mother/father your writing. So I'm going to explain what those are. So first, read a lot. Of course, we've all heard the advice, read a lot. People always say, and how to become a good writer, they say read as much as you can. Well, it's true. And also, it's not just that you read as much as you can, but that you read books that you want to model yourself after. Because when you read books, it's like it becomes added to the context of your writing. So like the content of something is like what you're focused on right now, but the context is like something unconscious. You're not focused on it, but it influences your writing. So, for example, you might think differently after reading an interesting book than you would have previously, and it all influences your writing. So reading more expands your knowledge base, and then when you read how these other authors do it, you can take note and model your writing after them, either consciously or unconsciously. So if you want to, for example, when I was in 6th grade, I was reading a ton of Gordon Corman books all the time, and my writing was really good because, and it kind of surprised me to go back and see just how good my writing was back then. And it's because I was writing after Gordon Corman, and I was basically modeling my writing after his, because I was reading his books so often. And there was a point where I stopped reading his books so often. I'd still read them, just not as often, and my writing actually got worse because I wasn't reading as much of his books. Now, I was kind of propping myself up by that, but that also helped me to become a better writer. So read a lot, read really good books though. So you don't want to be reading poor books and have them influence your writing. Or if you read books that have a style you don't really agree with, just take note of it and be aware of it, that you don't necessarily want your writing to be influenced by that. So reading a lot. So obviously it helps to have books you're interested in. I would only read books you're interested in, unless maybe they're classic books, maybe. But still, I'd read books you're interested in. And usually my judge of it is with a kid's book. If I can't finish it in one sitting, then it's not worth reading. That's for me, because I can read pretty fast and stuff, and usually I'll just read books in one sitting or a couple sittings. Now, if it's a longer book, like 1,000 pages, like some books are, and then obviously that rule wouldn't apply. So if it's a longer book, or even for you, it might be 200 or 300 pages, you might not be able to read it all in one sitting. But if you're losing your interest in that kind of stuff, then I just wouldn't finish it, wouldn't read it. Although oftentimes, like for the first half of a book, I won't like it, and then like halfway through the book, I'll be like, I'm really starting to like this book. But I would take care to read books you're interested in, you want to read, obviously. So what a really great way to read a lot, well, just by increasing your overall intellect. So just by doing more thinking overall, just by becoming smarter overall, will just make your reading better. And it's a conscious decision that you can make to become smarter, actually. And if you do that, it'll also help your writing too, because like if you're becoming more thoughtful a lot, then your writing will be more on the point, and you also won't have to make as many edits. But a really good way to do it in reading to become smarter is to read more advanced books. So for example, like To Kill a Mockingbird, for some people might be an advanced book, and to others it might not be, you see, because it's like 350 pages or something. Like, to me, I could probably devour that book in a couple hours or something right now, although when I read it a few years ago, maybe not so easily. And actually, a while ago, I was actually reading really slowly, but I was able to correct that. Now I can read several books a day. Literally, I read multiple books a day, and that's largely from reading more advanced books. So I would go out of your way to try to read books above the level that you typically read that are longer, more difficult, because when you do, then the books that you typically read will be easier, and it'll be easy to read them. So that's something you can do consciously. And then you can also try to read faster. Now, once you get really into reading and good in reading, and you might already be really good at reading, you won't necessarily, you'll just read fast automatically, and it would just be a hindrance. But you might have already heard about the fact that like some people, when they read, they silently go along with the words. That's because in schools, when they teach reading, sometimes they teach you to sound it out, and some people are still sounding it out in their heads, but that slows down your reading. So you want to try to not sound it out and try to read just a little bit faster than you're able to understand, sometimes to train yourself to read faster. And there are places online too you can go and search read faster, test reading speed, and you can read as fast as you can, and then your reading will improve. But the best way to do that is to read, as I said, more advanced books, and read a lot of books, and then just become more conscious of trying to improve your reading speed. Okay, and then as I said, take note and model your writing after the books. So that means that either consciously or unconsciously, you're looking at what the writer did to really well, and that you want to mimic. And so if they have a really good idea, you could think, that's a good idea. And then you could be thinking, how could I twist that in my own way and make it good? Or they might use an expression you might use. Sometimes you'll see writers use an expression and laugh because it's original and funny, and then you try to use that in your own writing. So reading a lot is really good, and reading smart, like I said. So I have a list here of the top 10 books to become a great writer, and which some of the books that have influenced my writing the most, and which I think are really good. And I would try to read all these books, or start with some of them at least, if you want to become a really good, fun writer, because these are some of the books that I think are very, very well done and pretty inspiring that you can model yourself after. So first, no surprise, Gordon Corman books. I have an interview with Gordon Corman in the first issue of Kid Writers Magazine. He's probably my favorite kids author. He's written the funniest books I've ever read, like Beware the Fish, Go Jump in the Pool, The Word Mr. Whistle. Those were written when he was a teenager. Super funny. He's also written adventure books like Swindle, and I would check out these books for sure because his writing is very good, especially as he gets older. Like in, for example, Everest series, Swindle series, his writing is very good. You can take a lot from his writing, but his ideas are really great, especially when he was younger. His ideas are really just much to me. So I would check out his books for sure. And you'll be laughing for a long time if you get his old MacDonald Hall series. Really hilarious books that he wrote. So definitely check Gordon Corman books out. And then second, Shredder Man. I've talked about Shredder Man before. Also, Shredder Man series is awesome. It's by Wendland Van Dranen, a kid named Nolan in fourth grade who's a nerd. And then he develops a website and becomes a superhero, Shredder Man, and takes down the school bully in the first book, and then eventually he solves more crimes and eventually even helps the FBI stop a traitor. So Shredder Man books are awesome. I really, really love them. Highly recommend them. Definitely, I would read them because this is about a kid who becomes really powerful by what he does, and is able to be. It's like just about like a normal kid just becoming really great and doing great stuff with this website. And as I've said before, it inspires me to this day. That I don't know if I necessarily use the writing devices in the book, but just the fun way that it was written in and the structure of the story has influenced me. And then like that's why I create websites today. Why I maintain websites, because ShredderMan.com really inspired me. So definitely check out Shredder Man, really inspiring book. Now, How I Survived Middle School. This is more of a girl's book. You might have heard me mention this before also. It's actually a series. It's super realistic. There are a lot of books for middle school girls or also like fifth grade kind of. And these are the best books, definitely, that have been written for that age group. And they're just super realistic. The characters are awesome. It's how Jenny is going into sixth grade. Her friend Addie dumps her and becomes one of the popular girls. She finds a new friend group. They're always fighting with the Pops. Like she runs for school president against Addie. They make a bet, and whoever loses it will have to win pajamas to school about who can raise more money at a carnival. And they're like double crossers and everything. And let's see, a new girl comes from England, but she's getting more, and the Pops take her in, but she's becoming more powerful than Addie, so Addie tries to stop her. And these are just really fun, really realistic books, and I'd recommend them for girls. Definitely boys who like that kind of books might like them too. I definitely do. And very well done by Nancy Kraulick. And yeah, there's just something about them that's really fun. So, and that makes you want to read them. I've read probably each of them a dozen times, and I still like rereading them. So, then Candy Apple series. This is for girls, period. I still like it. I don't know, but this is a series of books written by different authors about middle school girls. Let's see some of the titles here. Candy Apple books, for example, Accidental Cheerleader, Accidentally Fabulous, Boy Next Door, Miss Popularity, How to Be a Girly Girl in Just 10 Days, Drama Queen. So a bunch of different books. They vary, of course, in how good they are, but I'd mostly recommend all of them. Pretty much, they're all. I haven't read every single one of them, but I've read most of them. They're all really mostly realistic and They, they're mostly realistic and they're fun, and they always have usually some kind of social problem or friend problem happening in them, and usually they go through problems and everything turns out all right in the end. But it's not that they're the kinds of things that could actually happen too. They're not like these crazy young adult books that are really unrealistic. They're kinds of things that could actually happen, and their stories are kind of fun to go into the world and insulate in it and think about it. They're pretty well done. So for girls, I definitely recommend Candy Apple books by Scholastic. And then Margaret Peterson Haddock's books. I haven't read that many of her books. I've only read a couple, but I think it's called Running Out of Time book. Yeah, Running Out of Time by Margaret Peterson Haddocks. That's a very good book, and she has a crazy plot twist. Basically, this girl thinks she's living in the 19th century, but actually she's living in a simulation in the 21st century, or maybe it's the 20th century. I don't know, but it's a pretty crazy book, and she tries to escape and everything. So her books always have super crazy twists and just crazy stuff. So I definitely recommend her books because they're well written, and then they'll definitely get you thinking. Although they're kind of a little scary to think how these kinds of twists happen and you don't even know what's coming, but they're very well done books. So then the Great Brain series. This is a great series. It was written by F. Scott Fitzgerald. No, not F. Scott Fitzgerald. Who was it written by? That was the author of The Great Gatsby. No, The Great Brain was written by John Fitzgerald. Yeah, John Fitzgerald, not F. Scott Fitzgerald. The Great Brain series is about a kid named Tom. It's told by his brother. Tom is the great brain. He's a super smart kid, and basically the stories are told about his money-making adventures. He's always trying to make as much money as he can, and he makes everybody look like fools. He's always conniving people out of stuff, and he also saves the adults in the town more than once. So they're really funny books, and it's really amusing to hear what kinds of things he does, and it's also kind of inspiring to think, oh, I could be like that too. So Gordon Corman actually always says these are some of the books that influenced him the most, the Great Brain series. So I really like them. There's 7 books, although the 7th book was actually never finished by the author. I think someone else finished it, but 6 books released by the author, and they're all very high quality. So I definitely check out the Great Brain series. It's set in like the late 1800s, so it's a different culture, which may or may not appeal to some people, but it's also set in Utah. But either way, they're fun books, and I definitely read them to hear about Tom's escapades. They're pretty crazy. So let me see. Then the next is Frindle. Yeah, Frindle is a very good book, of course, by Andrew Clements. Very well-known book, and it's where this kid tries to call a pen a Frindle, and it turns into this big thing where his teacher seems to be fighting against it, and all the kids want the pen to be called a Frindle, and it becomes this big media thing, and it's a really fun book how this kid ends up doing this and goes to battle with his teacher. So it's pretty funny. It has some nice twists at the end too. Unfortunately, I can't recommend other Andrew Clements books because all his books are very good. They have good ideas, and then he usually preaches at the end and basically just says some stuff I think he shouldn't, where just talking about values that have nothing to do with the story, and which I don't like, I don't think that's the way writing should be. Writing should be to be enjoyed, and writing should not be to try to preach a lesson to kids unless going through the story. Like I've said before, you can teach a lesson of life through the story, doing great stuff, but then after the story and then saying, oh, and he did this, oh, he donated all his money to charity, when it makes no sense and contradicts the rest of the book. Just the preachiness of some of his books really bothers me, and I can't recommend them at all. Even though they were inspiring to me, there's some books like that were ruined, where some people try to put in political ideas or try to preach when it's not appropriate at all, and it ruins the book. I could talk more about it, but I don't think there's any point in doing it. We may go into depth in it more later in a different webcast, but anyways, Frindle doesn't do that too much. It does it slightly in a couple places, but not too much. It's a very good book. I definitely recommend it. Now, for younger kids, A to Z Mysteries is very good. It's for kids like 6 to 8, but very good series, 26 books, A to Z, and where these kids, what was it, Ruth Rose, Josh, and the other kid, I don't remember, but these 3 kids basically go around and solve all kinds of adventures. These also have really great twists. They're very fun. You don't see, there's no school in it, and I think that's good. It just kind of keeps it in a fun way. And the town they live in is really fun. It's like there's a map of the town. It's like a town you dream of living in, or like an old America kind of town where people are nice and friendly and good stuff happens, and they just run around having fun adventures. And very well, it's pretty funny. Yeah, very funny too. So I would definitely read A to Z Mysteries for younger kids, and then they also have a series for even younger kids too, which I read one book of and it was pretty good. So it's Calendar Mysteries, January to December. Those are also good too. And then the 9th book is Beverly Cleary books. Beverly Cleary books are, of course, very good. They're a movie made out of it recently, Ramona. There's also a TV series in the 80s made out of it, I think. But her books are very good. The Ramona series, the Henry Huggins series, Mitch and Amy. I didn't really like Ralph as much, the mouse, but her books are very good. They've influenced middle grade fiction dramatically, and her books are just about, she wrote them when someone asked her, where are the books for kids like us? Books about just normal, nice kids. And it's kind of old America, which is fun too, to go back to that. But these are just realistic kind of books, and they're fun to read, and they can also give you a model to write realistic stories. And then the last, kind of a shameless plug, Kid Writers Magazine. If you want to become a great writer, read the stories in our magazine, which are very well written by kids like you. So definitely read that at kidwriters.org. You can check that out. And I'm serious. I think reading our stories will help you writing a lot. Plus, it'll inspire you because they're all written by kids like you. So that's it for reading. Let me see how we're doing with time here. I have a feeling it's been a while already. Let me see. It's been, how long? I don't know. Well, it's already 5, so it has been a while. So we might not get through all of this. I'll try to get through the second part, write a lot, and then maybe we'll continue it next time. So then write a lot. So there's basically write as much as you can. So some people make arbitrary rules. For example, they say write 1,000 words a day. That's a bad idea, because don't judge your writing on word count. Judge your writing by how good it is. Like, some writers have become famous for writing one 500-word story or one book. Other writers have written volumes and never even gotten them published. So how much you write doesn't really matter, but I would just write as well as you can and just don't worry about how much you're writing. Also, some people say, right, just sit down and write 2 hours a day or 1 hour a day. I think I heard that, who was it? The famous author of Matilda and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Roald Dahl, that's what he did, which is that he would simply sit down and write for 2 hours every day, and that's how he came to write some of the most famous books of all time. But I wouldn't necessarily do anything that arbitrary every day. You could say, okay, today I'm going to write for an hour nonstop or something. But I would just do whatever seems right to you. But I would write as much as you can, and then you have great ideas. So it's pointless to write if you don't have good ideas, because if you're just writing a stupid, pointless story that doesn't mean anything, it's not going to help your writing at all. So I actually read an article a while ago about a woman. She used to write a couple thousand words every day, and then she took a break from writing publicly for a week, and yet she still wrote 1,000 words a day in her journal. And then when she tried to write again the next week, she found it was really hard because it was because she said she wasn't writing serious stuff, or wasn't writing stuff that was meant to be read. So just writing just random stuff isn't really going to help your writing very much. Maybe a little, but not very much. Like, for example, for NaNoWriMo, I wrote something that was like 35, let me see how long it was. It was 37,000 words, but the story was kind of pointless, and I would never actually publish it or anything. It's kind of, yeah, it's just not all that good. And writing that maybe helped me write length. So, like, for example, doing that made it easy then to write shorter stories. Like, after that 1,000-word story is nothing after writing 37,000 words in 3 weeks, okay? But as for my writing skill, it didn't really help. And so great ideas is the most important thing. So make sure you get great ideas before you start writing. And you can get great ideas. So you could say, well, I don't have any great ideas. Well, you can always find ideas. One, you can find ideas through reading books, and then just think, what's something really fun that could actually happen? So, and you don't have to have a great idea right away. And so what I do when I'm writing is I sit down and I'll make myself write out, for example, 10 writing prompts. So I won't even necessarily think of plots. Sometimes I'll think of prompts. And so sometimes I've even written prompts for the magazine, and then I've taken them out and used them for myself because I like them so much. So I would write general prompts just to start, like something general, like, let's see. So, for example, kids rush to build the ultimate snow fort on a snow day, but they are really just trapping themselves. So the principal, well, I won't read the full thing, but that's a story in our Kid Writers magazine, and I just wrote it like that and then wrote the story. So even just think of something that maybe you could write, maybe not. And then if you can't think of anything else, anything right away, don't be discouraged, because the truth is that for a long time I had trouble thinking of plots. Now I can think of more than I can write, and it's just from practice, from thinking hard, and just from doing it. And so just come up with some good ideas. I mean, it's not that hard. I mean, kids, thinking up great ideas all the time, and you can definitely do it, and it's a conscious thing. You can do it. So don't worry, some good ideas will strike. And then once you have the good ideas, write just start writing and write as the bug hits you too. So if you're feeling really great and feeling like you can write a lot, then write a lot. And that's the way you should do it, because there's no reason to hold yourself back. So if you're feeling like you could write the whole story right now, then just go and write it. And if you're not really feeling like writing, or you can't think of anything to write, I would say the best advice that I've found is just write. And it'll get easier and easier the more you're more thoughtful, get smarter about writing, and write more. But just write. So oftentimes when I'm writing in my stories, I think, I don't know how to write this next scene or whatever. I'll just start writing a sentence. So I'll say, like, the two kids climbed over the fence or something. And then just by starting, it already creates momentum for me to keep going. So just write and start writing, and then ideas will often come to you. And then just keep going, and your writing will get better. Don't worry too much about your writing quality, right? Worry more about your ideas at first, but then you can also make sure your writing is as tight as can be, and make sure it's the best you can. I haven't given much actual writing tips yet. I might more, but you know what good writing is. You've read good books. You can recognize good books. And so just if you keep writing well and keep reading good books, then your writing will just get better, as long as you're consciously trying to write well. So also, when you write well, you just write well, which is something I think it's true. So some people think, once I write for a long time, once I practice, once I do this, this has to be a good story. And then you think, this is just off the cuff, it's not going to be good. But it's not necessarily the case, because good writing is good writing no matter how it's developed. So how it's developed doesn't necessarily change anything for how it is right now. How your writing is right now is what actually matters. So the quality of a story doesn't depend on how much work you put into it necessarily, although it can help it, or how great an idea you originally thought it was going to be. It's how the story actually is. So when you write well, you just write well. I don't know if I can explain it more than that, but if you write a good story, and it's got nothing to do with how long you've been writing or anything. It's just a good story, and that's that, and you can be proud of it. And don't fall in the trap of thinking that because you've been writing for a long time, your stories will automatically be better, because that's not necessarily the case. Oftentimes, people's first few novels are actually better than their later ones, and a lot of people, it's easy to observe, and that's because that just writing for a long time or following these tips doesn't automatically guarantee you'll write well. So writing well is writing well, and always, so remember that your end product is ultimately what matters as to how good it is. So I think that's enough for today. I still got to talk about writing smart, and about writing about mother/father your writing, and I'll explain that. So we still got to talk about that, but we don't really have time to do that today. So let me find where Google thing. Here it is. Okay. So thanks for watching this today. I hope it helped you with your writing. And our next webcast next week, Merry Christmas, by the way. Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever. And next webcast will be on the 29th of December. And I'll do it a little early, so we'll probably do it around 3:30 instead of 4:30, because it's my schedule that day. And that's what we'll do. So next week, be here at kidwriters.org/webcast at 3:30 for next week's webcast, and we're going to do part 2 of the 4 tips to write awesome stuff. So thanks for watching, and keep writing. So, see ya.